What would you do if your 40 years of loyalty meant nothing? If tomorrow, your name could simply be erased? No trial, no charges, just gone. In North Korea, even a two-star general isn't safe from arbitrary disappearance. Today, you'll hear from Major General Kang Myung-chul, who served 3 supreme leaders and earned 32 medals, only to discover that in a system without rule of law, no one is truly protected. This is the story of a man who had to choose between his stars and his life. Join us in standing up for human rights. Subscribe to hear more stories of freedom and courage. I carried a gun my entire life, but when it came down to it, the gun wasn't what saved me. Before I start this story, let me tell you one thing. 3 days later, I fell to my knees and wept, in front of a simple bowl of tteokguk on New Year's Day. After 40 years as a soldier, a man who couldn't even remember the last time he'd shed a tear. By the end of this story, you'll understand why. It was fall of 2025. I was Major General Kang Myung-chul of the Korean People's Army, General Staff Operations Bureau. In South Korean terms, that's roughly equivalent to a 2-star general. I'd spent 40 years in uniform. I first walked into General Staff Headquarters at 27. More than half my life had been spent inside that building. Waking at 5 a.m. was a habit ingrained over decades. I'd wash up, put on my uniform, and look in the mirror. The stars on my shoulders, the rows of medals across my chest, the face of a soldier who had served 3 generations: Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un. Every morning, looking at that face, I thought the same thing: I am a pillar of this country. I am the one protecting this system. That belief never wavered. Not once. At least not until then. Pyongyang, Changwon Street, Officers' Residential Complex. As you probably know, not all cadres in North Korea are equal. Party cadres and high-ranking military officers lived in different worlds. I received different rations than ordinary citizens. I had access to exclusive stores, a personal car for my commute. From the outside, it was the life of North Korea's upper class. My wife Soan waited for me in that apartment, a brilliant graduate of Pyongyang University of Foreign Studies in Russian. But the party believed a major general's wife should stay home. Soan never complained, at least not to my face. What I learned later, Soan, was thinking very different thoughts during those quiet hours. That was the difference between us. I believed in the system. Soan had already seen through it. At night, we'd come home and eat in silence. That was our dinner. Soan would set the table. I'd pick up my spoon, chew, swallow, stand up. Before bed, I had this habit of standing by the window, looking out at Pyongyang's night view. There were lights, but strangely, they gave no warmth. The whole city was lit up, yet I felt this hollow, lonely feeling. I didn't understand why back then. Now I do. They were lights without freedom, and I never questioned it. I was shining in those same lights without freedom. One morning in October 2025, I arrived at General Staff Headquarters. Major General Park In-guk's seat was empty, no belongings. His nameplate was gone, as if that position had never existed. But nobody asked. Nobody spoke his name. Colleagues passing in the hallway would exchange a glance, then lower their heads and walk on. That was the rule in our world. Disappeared people become people who never were. The moment you speak that name, you become suspect. Park In-guk and I went back 30 years. Military academy classmates. We'd rolled in the dirt together in the field, risen through the ranks together, pledged loyalty together. Just 2 days earlier, he'd been drinking with me, saying, "Myung-chul, we're the ones protecting this country. It's people like us who keep the nation standing." That man vanished overnight. No charges, no trial, just gone. I spent that whole day pretending nothing was wrong. Attended meetings, reviewed reports, gave orders to subordinates. But inside, I kept thinking, what did Park In-guk do wrong? What crime did he commit? No matter how much I thought about it, there was nothing. He was just a diligent soldier, like me, which meant a diligent soldier, like me, could also become a person who never was overnight. That evening, I came home and sat down to dinner. Someone looked at me and said quietly, "You know it too. Park didn't do anything wrong. Nothing at all." I couldn't answer. Soan had said it first. My wife was seeing reality more clearly than I was. I couldn't finish half my meal that night. After that, every night before sleep, I had the same thought. What if my seat is empty tomorrow morning? What if I hear them call my name? That fear sat with me at the dinner table, lay beside me in bed, stared at me in the pre-dawn darkness. 40 years as a soldier, never afraid on the battlefield. But the thought that my name could appear on some document terrified me. Only after watching 30 years of friendship erased overnight did I understand. In this system, loyalty isn't insurance. It can be canceled anytime. No matter how well you serve, all that matters is whether your name ends up on a certain list. The crack began, very quietly, and I couldn't stop it. Every morning, walking into General Staff Headquarters, I thought, am I really a pillar of this system? Or just a replaceable part? I'd served 3 generations, received 32 medals, and still, in the end, I was just a part. Early November 2025, a staff officer, close to me at General Staff, pulled me aside after work, a deserted alley. He looked around twice, then lowered his voice. Comrade Major General, what I'm about to tell you risks my life. He said he'd seen a document from higher up, a purge list. My name was on it. At first, I didn't believe it. How could someone who'd given 40 years to this country be a purge target? But then I saw Park In-guk's empty seat in my mind. He probably thought the same thing. The official charge was suspected leaking of operational secrets, but the reality was different. A rising faction clearing out the old guard. It wasn't about what I'd done wrong. It was about which line I was on. And I was on a line that was no longer needed. His final words, they'll move before New Year's at the earliest. Walking home that day, I stopped for a long time, looked up at the sky. Pyongyang's sky. I'd seen it every day for 40 years, but that day it felt foreign. What was I under this sky? What did all those years I'd given to this system mean? Only now did I realize it had all been for nothing. I told Soin everything. My voice shook as I spoke. 40 years as a soldier, and my voice shook in front of my wife. Soin wasn't surprised. She looked at me, then slowly stood and pulled a cloth bundle from the wardrobe. Quietly, very quietly, like someone who'd been waiting for this moment all along. Her hands didn't tremble. She was far calmer than me. What was inside, I'll tell you shortly. But the moment I saw it, I realized I knew nothing about my wife, after all those years together. That night, I stood at the window for a long time. I'd lived 40 years for this country. Carried a gun, stood guard, been separated from family. When the party said go, I went. When they said stop, I stopped. And it had all been for nothing. Even a loyal soldier becomes a purge target when the lines shift. It took me an hour to accept that fact. And once I did, I could finally see ahead. A country where the innocent become criminals, where loyalty is met with betrayal. I had been the one protecting that country, and now I was someone who had to survive it. For the first time, those two facts became one. The cloth bundles Soin brought out inside were Chinese yuan U.S. dollars, 3 gold rings, and a small note. The note had a name and contact information. A defection broker's. I couldn't speak for a while. I couldn't even ask what it was. I already knew. Soin spoke first. I've been preparing since the day Park disappeared. I was just waiting for you to decide. I didn't want to hurt your pride by saying it first. 40 years as a soldier, believing I was the one protecting my wife. Turns out she was protecting me. While I received medals and pledged loyalty, Swan was quietly preparing an escape route, without a word, without a sign. My wife had been seeing reality far more coldly than I had. I felt ashamed. I'd believed I was protecting her, when really she was protecting me. That night we talked for a long time. If we go, we can't come back. I know, Soin answered. We'll never see Pyongyang again. So what? We're leaving things behind, sure. But what we're protecting is more important. The two of us. After hearing that, I couldn't hesitate any longer. At dawn, I drove alone to General Staff Headquarters, sat there staring at the dark building. 40 years were in there. I remembered the day I first walked through those doors at 27, full of energy, feeling like I owned the world. That young man thought this country was everything. I believed it too, for so long. I cried in the car, second time in my life. The first was when my mother died. After I finished crying, I turned the car around, went home and told Soin, let's go. Soin took my hand, said nothing. That was her answer. We'd never been talkative as a couple. 30 years in Pyongyang taught us to choose words carefully. The walls had ears. But in that moment, Soin's hand said everything 30 years of words couldn't. I'm on your side. I'll go anywhere with you. Live or die together. I squeezed that hand tight. We started packing that night. How much of what a major general owns is truly his? The apartment given by the party. The furniture distributed rations. The car came with the position. Nothing was truly ours. Ironically, having nothing to take made leaving easier. All we really had was each other. We set our departure for December 15th, 2025 at dawn. 2 days before D-Day, I buried my uniform in the yard. The medals, too. The rank insignia. I dug with a small shovel, folded the uniform, placed it in, covered it with dirt. 32 medals buried there, received directly from 3 supreme leaders. Someone might ask, why didn't you take them? 2 reasons. First, getting caught at a checkpoint with those meant instant death. Second, honestly, I hated that uniform. While wearing it, I wasn't a person, I was a soldier, a tool of the party. I didn't want to carry it anymore. Soin packed 2 backpacks. Our entire life had to fit inside. She hesitated, then pulled out a photo album. Wedding photos. Photos of our life together. She burned them. They were evidence. She kept just one tucked against her chest. The photo from our wedding day. We can take new ones, Soin said. I couldn't respond to that. But the night before departure, General Staff contacted me. Comrade Major General Kang, please come in tomorrow for a moment. That one-line message stopped my breath. I grabbed Soin's hand. Neither of us spoke. We stayed up all night. If I answered the summons tomorrow, I might not come back. If I didn't, I'd become a fugitive. Either way, it was over. That was the longest night of my life. I'd never heard a clock tick so loud. In the morning, I checked it was a meeting about a different matter. Nothing to do with me. Relief came, then stronger fear. Next time could be real. Each passing day meant fewer chances. I realized we couldn't wait any longer. That midnight, we shouldered our backpacks and left the house. We didn't look back. Actually, we couldn't look back. If we did, we wouldn't be able to leave. We'd contacted the broker 2 days earlier. The number Soin had written down long ago. First call didn't connect. Got through on the 3rd try. We spoke in low voices, coded words, set a meeting like passing a cipher. The broker named a price. The dollars and gold Soin prepared covered it exactly. She'd known precisely how much we'd need. Once again, I felt ashamed in front of my wife. The night before departure, I stood over the spot where I'd buried my uniform. The dirt piled thick over it. I didn't say goodbye. Just turned my back. Those medals belonged there. I wasn't that person anymore. December 15th, 2025, due A.M. We climbed into a disguised cargo truck the broker arranged. I wore civilian clothes. Soin was dressed like an ethnic Korean Chinese merchant. Pyongyang to Chongjin, Chongjin to Horyong. In the truck, we didn't speak. Soin clutched her backpack on her lap. I looked out the window. North Korean land passed by. Mountains passed. Fields passed. Dark villages passed. I had been a soldier protecting those villages. And now I was someone leaving them behind. Those 2 facts collided inside my chest. Halfway across the river, I looked up at the sky for a moment. It was full of stars. The world was silent. Only the stars shone. That moment is still vivid. More vivid than medal ceremonies at General Staff. That sky I looked up at from the ice. The moment we stepped on Chinese soil, my knees gave out. I put my hands on the ground. Couldn't speak. Soin gently rubbed my back. Didn't say a word. Just stayed there. For the first time in 40 years, I was just a person. After crossing the river, the broker rushed us along. No time to waste. We had to get away from the border before dawn patrol. I held Soin's hand and ran. My knees hurt. I was out of breath. My aging body screamed, but I couldn't stop. Behind me was North Korea. Ahead was a world I didn't know yet. That unknown world still seemed better than the ground I'd been standing on. I don't know how long we ran. The broker told us to stop behind a building. We leaned against it, catching our breath. Soin smiled for the first time small. I smiled too, for no reason. Just being alive felt like freedom, but I was wrong. We'd set foot on Chinese soil, but we had to hide even deeper. Yanbi and Korean Autonomous Prefecture. The broker connected us with an ethnic Korean church. The pastor led us to a small room. No windows. Never go out during the day, he said. Chinese public security would catch defectors and send them back north. We'd crossed the river, but it felt like another prison. I'd spent my life giving orders. But there, I lived holding my breath following the pastor's words. I swept the church courtyard. A major general from General Staff. But strangely, I didn't feel ashamed. If anything, that broom felt more honest than my medals. Those ethnic Korean pastors and church members who risked their lives to hide, us people of the same blood. I can't fully express that debt. I left without even learning their names properly. Someday I hope to find them and thank them. Soin's Russian skills shone, confirming routes through missionary networks, handling communications. Soin played a key role throughout. The whole defection, Soin accomplished more than I did. I was useless without a gun. Soin opened paths with a single word. Then one day, word came that public security was searching near the church. We climbed to the attic. A cramped, dusty space. We held our breath for 12 hours. Every time we heard footsteps below, Soin gripped my arm tight. I didn't move. In the middle of the night, Soin started humming very softly. A song from our wedding day long ago. I said nothing, just held Soin's hand. In that pitch-black darkness, my wife's hand was warm. The security left. We survived. Since that night, I've never forgotten that song. I don't remember exactly how many days we spent in Yanbian. Day and night blurred together. No windows meant no sense of time. But we ate. Meals secretly brought by church members. Better than the cadre rations in North Korea. That small bowl of rice tasted better. Probably the taste of freedom. Even in that room, Soin stayed strong. I asked if she was scared. I'm scared. But I was scared in North Korea too. Every day. Here, at least we can see ahead. I couldn't speak for a while after hearing that. Soin was always one step ahead of me. That was us as a couple. And because of that, we survived. From Yanbian to Kunming. Kunming to Bangkok. Buses, trains, walking, more buses. Missionaries connected us at each leg. Passing through countries where we didn't speak the language. All we had was each other. My knee was a mess. An old injury from field duty in the army, the forced march made it swell up. I gritted my teeth with each step. Soin applied pain patches every night. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion, but she never let it show. Late December 2025, we finally reached Bangkok. 2 weeks since we'd started the journey. For 2 weeks, we hadn't slept properly or eaten properly. But we were alive. That was enough. The South Korean embassy was downtown. The missionary gave us the location and left ahead. From here, we had to go ourselves. In front of the embassy gate, I gripped Soin's hand. The intercom button was right there. I reached out, then stopped. Soin, if we're caught here, we're finished. Soin grabbed my hand and pushed it toward the button. Press it. We came this far. If you hesitate now, it's all for nothing. Beep. A moment of silence. Then the door opened. A diplomat came out. South Korean. He looked at us and said in Korean, "Welcome. Please come in." At those words, I sank to the ground right there. Soin covered her mouth with her hand. Both of us at the embassy entrance, unable to speak, leaning on each other. He quietly patted our backs. "You've arrived. You're safe now." I didn't know those words could feel so heavy. We went inside the embassy and sat in chairs, received a cup of warm water. I held that cup with both hands. It was warm. That warmth traveled from my fingertips to my chest. Soin held her cup too. We didn't say anything, just felt that warmth. Identity verification took time. They said a special channel was activated for high-ranking personnel, like a major general. I provided every piece of information I could faithfully. That was my role. And finally, entry to South Korea was confirmed. When the diplomat said, "Everything's ready now," Soin cried again. I cried too. Crying in the embassy felt a bit embarrassing, but I couldn't help it. Tears don't wait for permission. 2 weeks since leaving Pyongyang, crossing 2 countries. The end of that long journey was a cup of warm water and a diplomat's pat on the back. I didn't know that could be enough. January 2026, we set foot on South Korean soil, landed at Incheon Airport, entered Hanwon, the settlement support facility, where North Korean defectors prepare for life in the South. I thought there'd be some overwhelming emotion stepping on South Korean soil, but in that moment it didn't feel real. Too much had happened in too short a time. Walking out of the airport exit, Soin said quietly, "It doesn't feel real." I said the same. "But we're really here now," Soin said again. She repeated it about 3 times. Then we both laughed. So many new experiences at Hanwon. The first time I went to a convenience store, I went in to buy water. Stood in front of the refrigerator for 5 minutes. So many kinds of bottled water. Different brands, different sizes, different prices. Nobody was there to choose for me. I had to choose what I wanted. I didn't know it could feel this foreign. Someone used to rations freezes in front of choice. The first time I got a TV remote too. I was flipping channels and a South Korean drama came on. I turned it off. Decades of ingrained habit did that. Then I turned it back on. Nothing happened. I turned it on and off several times. Soin watched from beside me and laughed. It had been so long since I'd seen Soin's face laughing at me. Learning to search the weather on a smartphone. I accidentally searched for Pyongyang weather. The screen showed Pyongyang 15°C. In that moment, I froze. Where is Park and Gook right now? What are my subordinates doing today? How did my leaving affect those people? That guilt stayed with me for a long time. Someone saw my expression and said, "Honey, you're not a major general anymore. You're just my husband." That's good. It sounded like a joke, but it wasn't. I had to start over from scratch, not as Major General Kang Myung-chul, but as Kang Myung-chul, the person, at 61. It was scary, and strangely, it was also exciting. Life at Hanawan was full of unfamiliar things. Classes, how to use a bank, how to use public transportation, how to prepare for employment. Someone who'd spent 40 years as a soldier, learning how to use public transportation. At first it felt absurd, but as I learned I realized these were all necessary things. Nothing I'd learned in North Korea was useful here. That fact was sad, but strangely liberating too, because it meant I could start over. Someone adapted faster than me. From the second day she used smartphones skillfully. I thought this person would survive anywhere. That was reassuring to me. January 29, 2026, New Year's Day, Hanawan held a holiday event. The staff prepared everything with care. Walking into the cafeteria, there was warm tteokguk on every table. White rice cake and broth, egg garnish, green onions, a strip of seaweed, steam rising. I sat down and picked up my spoon, like it was nothing. Just holiday food, I thought. I scooped up a spoonful, but right before putting it in my mouth, I stopped. That smell, the broth, the soy sauce garnish, a smell I'd encountered somewhere long ago. When I was young, the tteokguk my mother made on New Year's morning, that smell was coming from there. Even after decades, my nose remembered. With that one smell, 40 years collapsed. I looked over. Soin had already set down her spoon, hand over her mouth, crying silently. "Why are you crying?" I almost asked, but then tears came to me too. Thinking back, during my entire time as a major general at General Staff, I'd never once eaten proper New Year's tteokguk. Even the ration rice cakes had no garnish, no broth, no warmth. We'd set out something for the holiday, but it never smelled like this. The Major General's wife and the Major General himself, neither could eat this. That was North Korea, a country where the haves and have-nots alike couldn't eat real tteokguk. And another thought came. What are people in the North eating right now? It's a holiday. Are they at least eating rice cakes? Or are they starving today too? Someone wiped her tears and said, "Honey, we can eat this tteokguk every year now." At those words, I cried harder. Every year, being able to eat this, that's what freedom is. That one bowl of tteokguk taught me. Even today, every New Year's, I eat tteokguk. And I think of my mother, of Soin, and of the people in the North who still don't know this smell. Someday, I hope they can freely eat this tteokguk too. A day when New Year's is truly a holiday. In our lifetime, I hope that day comes. That day we cried for a long time. Other defectors in the cafeteria were similar. Sniffling sounds came from tables all around. Staff members quietly brought tissues. Nobody smiled. Everyone knew what these tears were. The tteokguk cooled, but we ate it anyway. Cold tteokguk, but it tasted good. Soan took a spoonful and said, "It's delicious." I took a spoonful and said, "It's delicious." That was all. Those two words were enough. I spent 40 years in uniform, served 3 generations, received 32 medals. But the most real moment of my life was that New Year's Day, eating tteokguk with my wife in the Hanawan cafeteria.